In 2013, I coined the name Grampian, and I gave it to your host, Jim Tracy.
Hey, Grampian Nation, welcome back to the Grampian Podcast. This is a place where Grandpa, that's me, chats with champions, and we've got a really cool one for you today. His name is Levi Jones. He is a, dare I say, world-class wrestler, but I'm going to let him tell us about that and maybe just about more what he did, but he is a person that I trust to coach my grandsons. And so that should tell you something about the man's character. Help me give a Grampian welcome to Levi Jones. Levi, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. Hey, we're super excited. Wrestling is a sport that in some ways has kind of, fallen out of favor in terms of the masses, but the people who are devoted to it are like, they're awesome and they're crazy and they're cool and yeah. So you have been wrestling for a long time, man. When'd you
Yeah.
start?
Yeah. So I actually started wrestling just kind of rolling around when I was three years old. And so 36 now and haven't really stopped wrestling. Fell in love with it from a young age
All
and
right.
then just took off from there.
Yeah, and you did not you came by this honestly. Your father was a coach?
Yeah. So my dad was a high school coach for I think 17 years.
Oh
And
wow.
so growing up, yeah, definitely had him in regards to the influence into the sport. But he
Sure.
just kind of let me find my way. He
Yeah.
was pretty supportive that way.
Oh cool. So where'd you go to high school?
Went to a school just outside of Spokane called Lakeside High School.
Lakeside.
And
Okay.
it's a small town of about 2,000 to 3,000 people.
Is that Medical
Very
Lake
small.
or
It's close to that. Yeah,
okay.
they were in like our league. Yeah.
Okay. Sweet. Okay. So and you wrestled obviously in high school. How did you do? How was your give us a thumbnail sketch of your high school career?
Yeah, so my high school career, I would say was it had its ups and downs. Definitely had some pretty big injuries that limited me later on in my career. But yeah, while I was in high school, I was four-time state placer, three-time state finalist, state champ,
Wow.
uh,
Wow.
three-time state champ for our team, and then I was second in the Fargo National Finals. I was a four-time high school All-American.
Oh wow.
And then after that, it was off to college.
Off to college. And the college that you went to is our beloved Smurf turf, Boise State.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you get hooked up with Boise State? I mean, they obviously were. I mean, some with your credentials, man. They obviously recruited you hard.
Yeah. So like my senior year, I took some pretty big injuries and didn't get to compete in some of the big national level events. And so I like wasn't really on the scene or on the radar of a lot of coaches. But around the Pacific Northwest, I was recruited pretty hard by Division I schools like Oregon and Boise State and Wyoming and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then, they basically had a pretty good team at the time and were doing things really well. And so I saw a big opportunity to probably make the jump and the dream that I kind of had from a young age and go there.
Well, let me tell you, from my grandsons and my wife's and my daughter's perspective, and my son-in-law, we are really grateful you chose Boise State, bro.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. So, you at one time were the number 2 wrestler at 141 pounds in the U.S. Was that why
Yeah.
you were at Boise?
Yeah, while I was at Boise State, I had knocked off a lot of previous years returning All-Americans at the Division I level. And when you do that, you really kind of jump up in the rankings. That being said, I was a 3-time NCAA qualifier, but I never actually finished in the top 8 basically, which is the All-American status. So yeah, ranked as high as number 2. At one point, I was behind a kid from Iowa that I had a really close match with. But yeah, just overall pretty good career where I gained a lot of knowledge about the sport.
Yeah. And so you had great coaching here at Boise. And and then you kind of parlayed that into a coaching career.
Yeah, yeah. I think from a young age, my dad just really installed um, what it what a good coach looks like,
Uh-huh.
and what a good coach does. And so
Yeah.
I think like from a young age, I probably was like pre-wired or predestined, I think, to be a coach. So yeah, as soon as I got out of college, I went right into coaching, coached at Arizona State, and then came back and did some stuff at Boise State.
Yeah.
And then back when they actually dropped the program, which is, kind of a long story, when things were going really well, I was actually coaching there. And then,
Okay.
that kind of segued me into running an academy and working with the youth and,
Yeah.
continuing on with my camps that I had run, but still like super strong passion around coaching. And so I think
Yeah.
just from a young age, it was just instilled, and it's probably something I was going to do.
Yeah. So when you went to Arizona State, I mean, you left Boise and you went down to Phoenix, right? And
Yeah.
ASU is a huge school. And did they have a lot of wrestling tradition at that point? Or I mean, what drew you there?
Yeah, I mean, really, it was just a phone call that with a job offer, and I had competed against those guys in the past in the
Yeah.
Pac-12, and so they had seen me wrestle and they knew kind of what I was all about, and so yeah, so I think it was my first opportunity to jump into college coaching, and
Okay.
so just really went for it and had a really good experience in regards to the kids I was working with,
Uh-huh.
but we didn't always see eye to eye on a lot of the philosophy behind running a program, and I quickly realized like a year into it that it might not have been the best fit for me.
Uh-huh.
But that being said, I built some amazing relationships there, and yeah, just had a really good time with the kids that I got to work with.
Oh, dude, it doesn't matter what business you're in. You can be in the coaching, you can be in the tire business, you can be in speaking business. It really is always all about relationships, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, relationships are huge.
Ah, sure.
Yeah,
So then you get a chance to kind of come home and
yeah,
tell us a little. There's got to be a cool story with that because it's hard to return home a hero,
yeah.
and yet you did.
Yeah, I mean, I just jump right back in, whether it be, helping in the college room or helping locally, kids, lessons, just kind of jump back in. And, I think if you have a serve with love mindset, and you love doing it, like you come from a genuine place, and you can really kind of fit back in anywhere,
Yeah.
especially in the sport of wrestling. Like if you really care about the individual and serving them more probably than you do yourself
Uh
and
huh.
your own accolades, then I think you'll be just about a good fit anywhere you go.
Yeah. One of the things that we talk about in the Grampian is and I'm finding more and more that people are fascinated with, like you get that championship moment and there's like this dopamine hit that's powerful. Um, but it might get you 24 hours. And so people are wanting to know about, hey, tell us about the stories and the grind and what it was like to get there. And then, like in your case, like you have done it again at a different level and then done it again at a different level. And now you've taken it to coaching at a different level. Tell us some of the challenges that you've overcome. You talked about injuries being obviously a major force, but tell us about some of the obstacles that you've been able to overcome in your wrestling career, coaching career, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think right now, like, the number one obstacle that you're working to overcome, is a pre-wired, um, emotional connection that athletes in general have, especially in the sport of wrestling. And that pre-wire is really to be focused on outcome.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what you're working on changing, is you're trying to get to a process over outcome mindset. If you can get kids to fall in love with the process, which also includes competing, it's
Yeah,
falling in love with competing as well. It's not just like all about loving to learn and learning all the
yeah,
time, but also like the full process of what, everything that wrestling entails. And I think that's been the number one challenge and the number one success as well is when kids start to make that shift where they eat, breathe, and sleep wrestling. They watch videos of it all the time, and they, can't get enough. They're always asking to come over to your house to train, and
Yeah.
they're sending you videos on technique that they saw, and hey, what do you think about this? Hey, what do you think about that? And and it's not even like a intensity mindset. It's more just like a joy. Like it's true passion for what they're doing, and getting them to
Yeah.
that point where it's totally process over outcome.
Yeah.
That's the thing that, like, I think as a competitor I wish I had more of, because I think I was a little bit more on just like the fighter side.
Yeah.
Like I was just kind of a warrior, and I would go through 10 walls if I had to, and that isn't always the best way. Like that's definitely a way to like build a really tough mindset and a tough heart
Uh-huh.
and a tough, just ability, physicality.
Yeah.
But I think the key, like one of the key ingredients, is getting kids process focused over outcome focused, and getting them to fall in love with the sport.
It's amazing you bring that up. I just watched a podcast with Tom Brady, and everybody knows Tom Brady's a goat. And they said, "Well, what are your regrets?" He goes, you know, what I found out is that I just love playing football. I just love throwing the football. I love watching the spiral come out of my hand. I love it as much on the beach. And then he said, as a matter of fact, people always think it's the game, but I actually liked practice way more than I like the game, because the game, there's these huge shouldered expectations that you have to carry, and it's super intense and it's no fun. It's like cool, but it's no fun. And practice, on the other hand, you get to stay with people, you get to hang out with people that you care about, and but it was love of the game and love of the people in the game that really uh, that that really explained for me what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, and I think like coaches that do really good job at programs or organizations, they are really good at like true love, which to me is like, building a relationship with a kid, but also holding a hard line and being willing to hold them accountable. And like when you have that kind of relationship, like where somebody cares so much that they'll hold you accountable or tell you what you're doing wrong,
Yeah.
and at the same time, like they'll go, play some frisbee golf or whatever, go hang out at the
Yeah.
river with you. Like
Right.
those type of relationships are powerful, and I think those are built in the practice room,
Yeah, and they
and
transcend time.
yeah, and they do, and they absolutely 100%.
Sweet. So, who was like? If there's obviously a lot of people who've helped you get where you got, and those a lot of times look like mentors, coaches, compadres. Tell us about some of those guys who mentored you along the way, along this adventure in wrestling.
Yeah, so my biggest mentors, like if I were to look back, I think my identity was pretty wrapped up into wrestling, and I found Christ, in my life when I realized, that there was certain mentors and people that were serving me in my life that really just had something that I didn't.
Yeah.
And I found that they had Christ in their life, and they weren't shoving it down my throat, but
Yeah.
they were just people that were learning God's word all the time, and they were constantly loving on me unconditionally,
Yeah.
and they just served me all the time, and it was like that was kind of a big like eye opener for me when I was young. Is like, what are these guys like? How are they so cool? Like, how
Yeah.
are these guys so awesome? And the common thing with all of them was they knew who Jesus was, and I think they
Yeah.
were living a life that was Christ-like, and that to me was probably the biggest impact in my entire life,
All right.
because that's allowed me and shaped me to be the person I am today.
Yeah. And when you see someone who's living that way, you go, I don't know what it is they got, but I got to find
Yeah,
out because I want some of it.
yeah,
I,
for
I
sure.
got to find out what it is. And it sends you kind of on a search.
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes it's like even if it's not faith, like sometimes it's just like the energy, like people are able to like truly be present, and
Hmm.
like when I'm around people that are very very present and they have great energy, it's just super contagious, and
Exactly.
it's something that like you something that you want in your life, you know.
Yeah. So who are those guys? Name them. Give them a prop right now, man. I mean, like in order. Like these are guys that had a big impact on me because.
Yeah, my dad was probably the number one. He was really good at being dad and coach.
Woo!
Yeah, for sure, right? And now he's grandpa as well.
All
Um,
right.
yeah, but probably my dad was number one. He did a good job of like showing me what it was like to like be a man around the house and
Yeah.
do things the right way. He also did a good job of like just hanging out with me and loving me
Yeah.
and doing fun stuff with me. And then he was able to turn on the switch in practice, which like if you're already kind of living life right, like you're probably going to be practicing right too.
Yeah.
And so it's not like he had to do some drastic, things to hold me accountable, but he was willing to push me. He's willing to always put me in situations where I might lose and I might that like things not might not go perfectly. He wasn't trying to protect, anything and like make sure I win everything. He was actually always putting me in positions that probably were going to really challenge my character and my response.
Right
And
on.
so, yeah, for that, like he's probably one of the biggest. And then I had some assistant coaches that were a part of that as well. That ended up being in my wedding, like Tim Kruger. He was just a guy that like he was always wrestling in the room, helping out, but you know, he'd pick me up in the morning sometimes and just take me to get a coffee,
Yeah.
He'd take me bowling some nights because I wasn't out, partying and doing stuff that some kids were doing. So he'd grab me and we'd go bowling,
Yeah.
and just stuff like that was just a huge impact in my life.
A lot of people don't recognize, but one of the things that wrestling brings to the table, because it is such a narrow, deep niche, is there is a strong sense of community. And that community is based upon trust. Is that am I kind of hitting it in the right area there?
100%.
Yeah. So in sports, there's that sense of community, and then in life, you rolled up and you said, "Hey, I'm gonna run a coaching practice that's not affiliated with a school, but you do it in schools." And so to help people understand, um, Levi has something called the All In Wrestling Academy,
Yeah.
and that is run out of the Boise market. And he's got Eagle and what Star and Nampa, Meridian.
Oh man, they come from all over the valley. They come from Garden Valley. They come from Vale, Oregon. They come from Nampa. They come from all over the valley. Yeah.
Okay, and then once a week, twice a week. How many nights do you coach young people? I
Yeah.
almost said young men. That just shows you how old I am because
Yeah.
there's actually ladies wrestling now as well, women's wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah. So we do 4 nights a week and we basically offer opportunities to train year round. So 12
Hmm.
months a year. And
Oh
we
wow,
coach ages from 5 to 18. Yeah.
wow. Okay, and they can find that at allinwrestling.com.
Academy.com. Yep.
Allinwrestlingacademy.com. We'll get that on the bottom of the screen so
That's
people
cool.
can actually type it in rather than try and listen to our diatribe on websites because I never know whether it's .com or .org, whatever. But anyway, so in all in what there's a philosophy. I mean, look at the sign behind it. Just move your head to the side a minute. It's
Yeah.
like it's a lifestyle, it's a choice, it's time. There's a sense of urgency about everything that you do. Tell us why it's a lifestyle, why it's a choice, and why it's time.
Yeah, I mean, I think just always challenging our kids to continually improve. And
Hmm.
so, like, if they're making a peanut butter and jelly, like, I love just like challenging them, like, can you make a better peanut butter and jelly? Like, just like simple things, like you're playing ping pong, can you figure out the game, right?
Yeah,
Can you figure out how to hit it a different way? Can you play Japanese style, American style? Can you dig in and learn like what
yeah.
it's all about? Because I think growth and knowledge as a person is like such an important thing that we ought to be in seek of.
Hmm.
And so whether it's your faith and you're searching the word, or it's a sport that you're doing, or it's classroom and you're sitting in front of the class, like I want my guys to be the guys that are asking questions. I want my guys to be the guys that are almost annoyingly in search of being better. And it's just, yeah, it's just a lifestyle. It's a choice, and it's time. It's always time. It's,
Yeah.
it's always time to check in. Like, you don't want days to go by where you're robotic and going through the motions. You want to, and that's going to happen, but you want to challenge yourself to improve in all you do. Like me as a dad, me as a husband, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Sweet. Sweet. So that relates to All In Wrestling Academy, which is kind of localized to the Boise area, Treasure Valley, I should say, and is incredibly successful just because of the impact. I've watched the impact that you've had on two of my grandsons. One
Cool.
is 5, and one
Yeah.
is 18 or 17, coincidentally. Um, so then I found out that you ran some camps, and you partner with somebody and you run wrestling camps, Washington, Northern Idaho, the mountains like Salmon, Idaho, and here
Yeah.
in the Boise area. Tell us about those, man.
Yeah, so we just got done with our first camp of this summer, which is a week long. There's summer camps. This is our 30th year, and it's actually
Wow.
a business that my dad started in 1994. And so, yeah, this is year 30. He started it back then and then ran it for about 15, 16 years, and I've been running it for 14, 15 years.
All right.
And yeah, so the tradition, is strong, and it's the type of camp that a lot of people don't want to run because it's a lot of work. But it's also the type of camp that probably makes the biggest impact. And so it's called an intensive camp, because it's very, very intense.
Uh-huh.
For lack of a better word, it's near hellacious. It's very, very tough. But there's a transformation in your mind and your heart, that's probably taking place that week if we're sharing the right messaging, and we're really digging into the real life questions and topics. Then you start to, really start to search for, who you want to be outside that wrestling room
Yeah.
as soon as camp ends.
Right on. So tell us what a day at camp looks like then.
Yeah, so day of camp will be 6 a.m. wake up, 30, 40-minute workout hard. Everybody's sleeping in tents, so big siren goes off and you wake up, get out of your tent, and start to get after it. You get that 30, 40-minute workout in, really trying to just create a habit of waking up early and doing something.
Uh-huh.
Not meant to completely kill you, but it's tough. And then the 10 o'clock session, it would be next, and that would be technique for 2 hours with, honestly, the last camp we ran, we had two two-time Olympians teaching at the
Wow.
technique, which was just amazing. I mean, it's rare enough to be a Division I wrestler, let alone Olympic team member, let alone Olympic placers.
Oh, wow.
And
Crazy
so it's
cool.
just, yeah, it was really cool. And then they would go through an intensive practice at 3 o'clock every day for 2 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a grinder. That's like the toughest. Just to give you an example, one day we went 2 hours nonstop live. One partner, no words, can't talk,
Wow.
just live wrestling for 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, so I
Wow.
mean, those are designed to be special. They're designed to be abnormal. They're not designed for optimal body performance. They're designed to check your heart and your mind
Yeah.
and get you tough, right? And then at nighttime we do 7:30 duels, and then we do a tournament with the whole camp every single night. Wake up, do it again. So that takes place for 6 days. It's pretty tough.
So, how much wrestling do you get in over a 6 day period versus what you would do if you were just like, I mean, if you were in high school practice, you get out of school, then you go get changed, then you go warm up, then you do little PT, you run some stairs, and then you hit the mat and you grind on each other for 45 minutes, and then get in the shower, and it might go an hour, but then you get in the shower and then you get home, and you might run in the morning, but I mean the amount of one-on-one time that you get in like a high school situation, uh I mean 80 hours a year, maybe you're talking about
Yeah,
60
yeah,
hours in a
just in
week.
that,
You're
I mean, just in that week alone, like you'll get a season's worth of matches. I mean, you'll wrestle countless live goes. You'll see tons of different body styles, so you'll get a lot of different experiences. Yeah, I mean, For the price point that we offer camp, it's invaluable. Like
Oh
it's
man.
you couldn't even put a number on it if they're really hearing the message,
Yeah.
and they're getting that full experience, like they're really going for it, right?
But that's a season's experience in a week.
Yeah, yeah,
Plus,
it's big.
you're teaching them how to get in shape for a long season.
Yeah, and then every single night, like we're having character messages too. So like every single night we fly in different speakers and different
Oh
people that
wow.
come and talk to the guys. And they fly in and they talk for 30, 40 minutes. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, but that's how important that part is, right? Because at these camps, like we care more about like who they are when they leave camp, because we know that, they're probably not going to retain everything
Yeah.
and they're going to get good experience. But, you know, when they wake up that, following week after a lot of rest, when they wake up and they go chase life, we just hope that, and we pray that that camp is going to make an impact on their life.
Wow. Wow. Sounds like you need some Grampy in there. You let me know, man. I'm available. But
Yeah, I should have
so
got you up for the Garden Valley one. Dang it.
so as you look around and I want to give out your website, but I have to caution people, like when you go to sign up, your camps are full. I mean, you're talking about a couple hundred kids at a camp, right?
Yeah, yeah, the camps are full. They're all sold out except for our one in Salmon in July. So if people are out there and they're listening and they want to join camp,
Okay.
July 8th to the 13th.
July 8th to 13th, Salmon, Idaho. What's the website where they can find the camps at?
Yeah, it's www.kicintensive.com.
KIC
KIC Intensive. And
Intensive.
yeah, so they're called the Kaizen intensive camps by All In, but basically Kaizen is a word that we've kind of been talking about on this podcast. When we're seeking continual improvement.
Uh-huh.
So it's a Japanese phrase that stands for continual improvement. And I mean, I can't tell you how many people have now tattooed that on their bodies, and yeah, but it means something. It's pretty
All
cool.
right. Sweet, sweet. So, as you look forward, what is the outcome that you would see that where you would go, wow, I had an impact in that kid's life, and here's what it looks like tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the outcome side of things, it is really fun because, I think I have 11 kids in college wrestling right now, maybe 12, and I think six of them or five of them are at the Division 1 level right now,
Wow.
wrestling at some of the biggest institutions there are, and it's fun and it's exciting, that part of it. But I found that, like, if I was only focused on that as a coach, I you kind of, like, it's not that you burn out, but you kind of just, like, you get hit by this wave of emotion. Like, you work with them for like 6 years and then all of a sudden they leave, and they go to college and they're no longer, now you got to do it again. You got to start
Yeah.
all over again. And
Yeah.
so I have to stay pretty focused on just like my process day to day, and like, um, really focus on like each kid at every level. And whether I run into Brock and I'm serving him and just engaging in that moment. And I
Yeah.
think that's where I get the most joy,
Yeah.
is just kind of like being as present as I can in the moment. Usually when I'm focused on like outcome of, what kids accomplished and what kids did or didn't do, it kind of wears me out.
Yeah.
So I try to just serve them as best I can, and then if that means they're national champions, if that means they're making national teams, or if that means they just made a varsity team in high school, like,
Yeah.
I gotta be cool with that.
Yeah. My kid one time, my business partner, Ryan, he was doing an interview with somebody and they said, well, what do you do, man? Like, you used to be a tower guy and now what do you do? He says, well, I could build any kind of tower. I can build guide tower, I can build cell supporter, can build any kind of tower you want. I've already built. I know how to build it. I'm good at building it. But now I build men.
That's cool.
I build men who build towers, so that
Yeah.
teach them to stay safe and teach them, because at some point you've risen to the top of your craft, both
Yeah.
as a wrestler, as a college athlete. There's very few people who can say that that they existed at the top of their chosen game, but then you've taken it up a notch in coaching, and I so appreciate the character aspect of what you're doing. And so
That's cool.
that's why we wanted to have you on. That's why you get a salute from the Grampian.
That's cool.
And if you get a little bit older, man, you can be your dad's probably a Grampian, doesn't even know it yet. But
Yeah.
thanks for coming on the show with us. If you had some advice for your 17-year-old self, you would say, hey, Levi, I want you to.
Yeah, I think the number one thing I would say, this is in some ways like a shameless plug, but it's true about how I feel. This last year, came out with a version of what we call the All In Wrestler's Journal. And this is a tool that does exactly what we've been talking about. It literally helps teach kids about the process over the outcome. And it forces you to be an intellect in the sport of wrestling, which is very, very important if you're going to learn wrestling. But then also, of course, as a journal, it kind of gives you the opportunity to start developing habits that are going to help you in your life, like tapping into gratitude,
Awesome.
Stuff like that. So I would tell my young self to journal and to journal daily, and to use that journal. That would be my number one thing to tell my younger self.
All right. Great counsel, man. And thank you for joining us on the Grampian podcast. We appreciate you, and get yourself some rest, because you got another camp right around the corner, and one after that and one after that. So Levi Jones, All In Wrestling, thanks for joining us on the Grampian. And Grampian Nation, go on his website, look a little bit at what the guy's about, and you will too appreciate going all in on whatever it is. Go all in.
It's awesome.
This is Jim, and I am out.
Thanks, Jim.
When you get an opportunity, subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcast.